Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the webinar Supporting Teachers Through Instructional Coaching. I'd first like to introduce our great sponsor and partner for this webinar, Amy Catlin with Academy of Medical Professions. Amy, you're on mute.
Oh, hi, my first time doing Zoom. Nice to see you all. Really, I don't see any of you other than Susan and Bethel, but I'm sure Susan's going to have a great presentation for you all. And our company is a vocational school, and we are based out of Maine, but we partner with adult education centers throughout the country. What we do is offer medical vocational schools, 7 of them, which I'd like to share with you right now here. These are our 7 programs that we offer. We offer them in a live format, live on site at your adult education center, or we offer them live through Zoom for those who want to have just online offerings, or a combination of both of them. What our adult education centers do is they offer a space for us if they want a live class. They do the advertising for us, and then we pay them for every student that they provide us. And we are approved by all of the workforce development grants and organizations. So these programs are highly sought after, and we do everything. So we take care of the students, we take care of your instructor, and making sure the students have everything that they need for the program, including the national certification. So if you're interested in learning more about how to partner with us, please reach out anytime. We have a bunch of information we can send you, and hopefully, we can look forward to helping a lot of people in your community. So I wish you lots of luck, Susan. I can't wait to hear about what you have to teach us.
Thanks so much, Amy, and thank you so much for sponsoring this. And now I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne Finn Miller, the main event, and it's just sit back and enjoy the webinar. Thank you so much. Susan, you're
Thank you, Bethel. Appreciate that. And it's good to hear about the offerings at the Academy of Medical Professionals. Amy, thanks for being here today. So lots of you across the country here today. Welcome, welcome. We're so happy that you can be with us today. So here's our agenda. Welcome, of course, some introductions. Our goals, we'll go over our goals for today. Principles to guide instructional coaching. So we're focused on supporting teachers through instructional coaching. We'll offer a framework for instructional coaching feedback, and then we'll hopefully have time to address any questions that you might have. So our goals is to include highlighting what the research suggests about the value of instructional coaching, introducing a set of principles as mentioned, and discussing what makes for effective and ineffective feedback to teachers. And I'll be sharing with you a framework for offering feedback to teachers. So once again, warm welcome to all. So many of you have already introduced yourself in the chat. I'll invite you to respond to the question here. Have you ever had a coach? What was it like being coached? So if you would like to, enter one sentence that describes your being on the receiving end of coaching. This could be at work or when playing a sport. It could be even as a child. So one of the things that I could put into the chat, or I'll just share with you, when I was learning to drive, the car that I learned to drive was a manual standard shift car. And my dad was my coach, and being on the receiving end of my dad coaching me was both positive and negative. Finally, he gave up on me, and we lived on a cul-de-sac, so he let me drive around the cul-de-sac until I finally mastered how to get into first gear and into second gear, driving it around and around and around. That was more than one sentence, but anyway, that was a mixed bag, I would say, but I finally did learn. So it gives folks who want to respond to the prompt. Basketball coach, yes. Discipline, yes. Excellent. Leadership mentoring, wonderful. Some are not necessarily positive experiences. Parent coaching us. I also remember, coaching my kids how to tie their shoelaces. Oh, middle school choir teacher, wonderful. Coaching in soccer, good for you, Brenda. I have a couple of grandkids playing soccer right now. So great. So I should introduce myself a little bit to give you some information about my background. I have been in the field for a very long time, doing just about in every job that a teacher, teaching every kind of class that a teacher can teach, and also being able to stay connected to the classroom in various professional learning leadership roles. So I saw myself as a teacher leader. I still see myself as a teacher, even though I'm retired from my full-time job where I worked in a local program for over 30 years. So I have been serving as coach to the coaches for the Teaching Skills That Matter project. We train teachers in 33 states. I'm sure some of your states were among those. And now I'm serving in a similar capacity with the Digital Resilience Across the American Workforce project. Perhaps some of you are involved in DRAW as well. I'm a links moderator and a links trainer, and it's just my delight to be with you. And once again, I want to welcome everyone for being here. Coaching is motivational. Thank you, Akima. All right, thanks for all your, somebody had a mean ballet teacher, coach. Sorry about that. Yeah. Coaching has not always been positive for some of us. So let's talk about the values and principles of instructional coaching. So what does the research tell us about what's effective? Effective professional development, according to Darling Hammond and her colleagues, has a content focus, involves active and collaborative learning. It focuses on effective instructional practices. It offers opportunities for feedback and reflection being one of the most critical components, and it's sustained over time. So a one-shot workshop, I think everybody is familiar that maybe that's not the very most effective. Does that mean that one-shot workshops are not wonderful? They are, because for lots and lots of reasons, but does it actually lead to change? Maybe not as much as training that really is sustained over time and that is very job embedded. And that's one of the features of coaching and mentoring that is important, I think, in leading to change. So Desimone and Pack in 2017 said that combining these features with coaching has the potential to improve teaching practice. So the question is still, if we are able to improve teaching practice, does that lead to student achievement? It's not always easy to make those connections through research. So in a meta-analysis that was done in 2018, there was a conclusion that improved instruction did lead to student achievement. This is what we would hope, right? We hope that all of our professional development will lead to student achievement. One caveat, this study was focused on primary teachers and primary children who were learning to read. So in that context, does that transfer over to adult education? I would say we don't really know, but it's promising. So I think there's definitely potential, as Desimone and Pack noted as well. So on the slide, you see a set of what Jim Knight calls partnership principles for instructional coaching. Jim Knight, if you're familiar with the world of instructional coaching, is really one of the most important voices. He's written many books on instructional coaching. No surprise, they're all contextualized in K-12 instruction, but I do think that we can make many connections. And I have found these 7 partnership principles to be especially valuable. So across the screen here in the box, you see the 7 principles, partnership principles, and short explanations. And this is a matching activity. If you wanted to, you could use the QR code and you can do the activity online, or you can just do it in whatever way you want. You do not have to put your answers in the chat, but we'll just give you a couple of minutes to think about how to match these partnership principles with the descriptions listed 1 through 7. All right. I don't know if that was enough time, but here are the answers. So number 1, teachers learn from coaches and coaches learn from teachers. That's reciprocity. So the relationship between a coach and a teacher is well suited for coaches to learn from teachers and for teachers to learn from coaches. Everyone has something to teach us. Number 2 is voice. Teachers feel safe expressing their thoughts and they know their opinion matters. So the opportunity to feel heard is really, really important. And when coaches are listening to teachers, this helps them develop, or for teachers to see them as authentic, and it also creates more space for openness. Number 3, equality. One partner does not tell the other what to do. Coaches recognize teachers' expertise. So coaches and teachers each contribute in an equitable fashion, and these interactions, we hope, will embody equality, and that listening, we're listening as coaches, we listen with empathy. Number 4, reflection. Much of the pleasure of professional growth involves thinking deeply about what we are learning. So we know that coaches and teachers have the opportunity to co-create through reflective conversations. So conversations are really important. And I love this quote from John Dewey: "We don't learn from experience, we actually learn from reflecting on our experience." Coaches, in addition to the coaches creating the space for teachers to reflect, coaches are also reflecting on what they are learning from their conversations with teachers. Number 5 is praxis. Coaching support is relevant and enables teachers to apply what they are learning in practice. So that term praxis was kind of a new one for me when I first encountered this material, but it's really about, as it says here, applying what one's learning in practice. So if teacher or the coach facilitates the space that will give teachers the opportunity to discuss changes in their practice, their habits, their instructional delivery, designs, and making a difference, most importantly, for adult learners. And dialogue. Dialogue is kind of embedded in several of these principles. During conversations, I like this idea of coaches serving as thinking partners with teachers. So deeply respectful, empathic, as we mentioned, conversation is really where the important work of coaching takes place. And then finally, choice, letter B, coaches position teachers as the final decision makers. So teachers have the ability, they have the confidence and comfort to say either yes or no to recommendations of the coach. So those are Jim Knight's partnership principles. So let's talk about some coaching strategies and some ways to offer effective feedback to teachers. So what do teachers say about the feedback they receive? As a teacher for over 30 years, I can say that I often would hear, "You're doing fine." And research that's been done asking teachers this question, they often will say that they don't always get helpful feedback. Even if they're told they're doing a good job, they're not always told why they're doing a good job. And I think it's interesting to think about this. How do we go about giving them feedback that's really going to help them to grow as professionals? So here's a little exercise. Which items below are true about learning? I'll give you a moment to think about this. Letter A, more than one answer can be correct. Learning rests on our grasp of what we're doing poorly. Letter B, we learn most when someone pays attention to what's working and asks us to cultivate it intelligently. Letter C, telling people how to improve hinders learning. Letter D, our brains interpret critical feedback as a threat. So you can think about which of these items do you think are true? I'll just give you another few seconds here. So these are the answers. And so B, C, and D are true. Letter A, learning rests on our grasp of what we're doing poorly. That one is not true. So we often think of feedback as telling people what we think. So telling a teacher what we think of the instruction when we're observing teaching, what they should do to make it better. And sometimes we think about delivering this feedback as a feedback sandwich. You may be familiar with that concept. So we offer a positive comment, put the negative comment in the middle of the sandwich, and then another positive comment. But what we know from this research is that teachers actually anticipate the negative comment is coming. And what happens is it actually triggers the fight and flight mechanism in the brain. So what the authors of this study that appeared in the Harvard Business Review, this article was available by Buckingham and Goodall, was available on the website, but it's no longer available, unfortunately. It's really an interesting article. But what they said is that their idea of feedback is different. It's commonly believed that feedback is about telling people what we think of their performance and how they should do it better. But the research is clear, they claim. Telling people what we think of their performance doesn't help them thrive and excel. It actually hinders learning. So if in fact that's true, and we have a lot of evidence that it is true, it would be very important for those giving feedback, whether we're just giving feedback to somebody in their performance, whether it's a teacher or not, I think the same principles will apply. So what we know is our brains respond to critical feedback as a threat. And what the authors, Buckingham and Goodall, suggested is that what we want to do is how we might do something better is by adding some nuance or expansion to our own understanding. Learning rests on our grasp of what we're doing well and not what we're doing poorly. And they emphasize certainly not on someone else's idea of what we're doing poorly. And the other point that's really important from these authors is we learn most when someone else pays attention to what's working within us and asks us to cultivate it intelligently, as it says here in letter B. So this was really valuable to me as somebody who serves as a coach, and also in my work with the TSTM project and the DRAW project. The team that I've been working with, we talk a lot about how do we provide feedback that can really make a difference. So here's a list, and if you would like to put your responses in the chat, you can do that. You don't feel obligated to, but you can. So effective feedback to a teacher is, so among this list of 12 items, consider which are effective and which might not be effective. So for example, number 1, is effective feedback evaluative? So if you wanted to put any responses in the chat, you can enter the numbers for the effective feedback. So if you think that effective feedback is evaluative, you would put number 1 in the chat instead of typing out all the different items. So I'll give you a moment to consider it, whether you want to put your answers in the chat or not. That's fine. We'll just take a couple minutes for this. Okay, lots of answers going in the chat. Excellent. So here's how I categorize these. So effective feedback is personalized around a teacher's goal. It's based on accurate data. It's concrete and specific, timely. So in other words, if I observe a teacher and then I'm not getting around to giving them feedback for a month or 2, that's not very timely. So it should be as soon as possible. Descriptive. Descriptive is, I think, one of the most important words about the kind of feedback that we're giving, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the process or the framework for offering feedback. Actionable. Actionable has to do with things that teachers can take action about in their instruction. And I think number 12 is really important, ensures teachers do the thinking. So again, a coach is creating that space for teachers to do the thinking. And then what's not so effective, evaluative feedback, masking a suggestion as a question. That's a hard one for many of us. Giving advice and offering opinions, those are similar, I think. General versus concrete and specific, right? So giving advice and offering opinions, I think, is something that we do as coaches, but we probably want to be sure that the teacher is open and welcoming of that advice and opinions, not that we just do this automatically and think that that's what our main job is. I think masking a suggestion as a question is one of the hardest aspects of giving feedback. But that's something that, I try to keep working on. So norms of actionable feedback. One of the things on the effective feedback side was actionable. And I like how Feldman highlights these components of giving feedback. So some norms that can guide the work that we do as coaches: humility, curiosity, kindness, and respect. I think we need a lot more of all of these in our world today, not just in our work as coaches. So let's look more closely at some teacher feedback now, some examples. So take a moment. You can share thoughts in the chat if you would like. You can, I forgot to ask Bethel if it's okay for you to raise your hand and speak. maybe Bethel, you can say something about that if that's okay. It might be better to just put things in the chat. So take a moment to reflect on this feedback. Okay, somebody, I forgot. Bethel, can Steve, he raised his hand. Can he share his thoughts? I'm not sure if she's there. I don't know, Steve. I forgot. I apologize for not.
Susan,
Yes, Bethel.
they cannot unmute themselves. They can raise their hands and they can
Okay,
put
I think
something in
Steve
chat.
raised his hand.
Yes.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Steve.
They cannot unmute themselves though.
Okay, but
So
you can
he can,
unmute them.
yeah, he'll have to put his thoughts in the chat.
Oh, okay, very good.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
guess we won't unmute then.
Yes,
Okay, that's fine. I should have asked ahead of time. Thanks, Bethel.
that's fine.
All right. Sorry, folks. Okay, so let's see if anybody has comments in the chat. Yes. Sorry, Doug. Sorry, Steve. Yeah. Okay, so Steve said the feedback is good until after the second sentence, and then it seems somewhat evaluative. Yeah, good point. Anyone else have thoughts? Should, yes, Carrie, thank you. Has a bit of a scolding tone. Thanks for that. There's value in allowing students time to process. Yes, absolutely, Brenda. Thank you. Yeah. Any others? Harsh, it's somewhat harsh, Anita says. Have you tried? Yeah, so that's one of those questions that could be a veiled suggestion, which is so tempting. Like I said, not helpful. A word like consider, good advice. I think I didn't get to read that one. Good advice. It's hard for me to manage this chat. Allowing time to think. Good. Yes. You can always reteach something. Yes. Leave the feedback. Yeah, maybe there might be some shame or embarrassment there. Giving students more time to think before asking them to respond might have solicited more responses. There's an idea, Steve. Thanks. Big difference in giving feedback and giving advice. Yeah, there's a mix in here. Excellent. Yeah. Okay. So let's look at this revised feedback. Whoops. In what way is this revised feedback? It's the same situation, the same scenario. How is it different? And you can put your thoughts in the chat about that. It's real similar to what some of you have suggested. Yeah. Ask the teacher to do the thinking. Thanks for that. I noticed it's not a judgment. Thank you for that. More open and teacher focused. Yeah. Yeah, the last sentence especially. Yes, Steve, it's real similar to what you suggested. Open-ended questions. Yes. Take X minutes to think about it. Oh, that's interesting. Yes, yes. We can tell students, yes, we can set up a time and do that. Much more objective. Thanks, Lapita. Much more evidence-based. Yeah. Elect a reporter. That's another good suggestion, Carrie. Thank you. Oh, Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Good to see you. I know Carrie. Excellent. All right. Thanks for those comments. Think, pair, share. Another good strategy, Rakima. Thanks for that. So offering, different activities that could might be useful for the teacher. All right. So here's a process or a framework for offering feedback to teachers. And I learned about this from reading a research study, and I have found this to be extremely effective. So in red, we have what are the learners doing and saying? Letter B, what does the teacher do and say? In blue, and letter C in green, is there a question to invite teacher reflection? So all the learners were actively engaged in their small group discussions. When you posed a question to debrief the discussion with the whole class, I noticed that students were thinking about how to respond. What might be some ways to ensure learners have enough time to think through their response. So providing feedback through this framing is very descriptive. And remember when we looked at the list of effective and ineffective feedback, being descriptive was on the side on the left-hand side where we listed effective feedback. So if we can provide feedback to teachers in this way, we are describing exactly what we see and then thinking about how to frame a question that can allow the teacher to reflect. And you know what, the examples of feedback that I'm offering here in the next example are in this one too, just this example is not necessarily perfect. You might think of better ways, okay? There's no such thing as perfect. So just that is a caveat as we move forward here. So from this coaching feedback, think about, and again, you don't have to put your answers in the chat, but using this framework that we're sharing with you today, what are the learners doing and saying? What does the teacher do and say? And is there a question to invite teacher reflection? So I'll give you a few minutes to think about this, and then I'll share with you my interpretation. And I guess I'll go ahead and read it aloud. No, if people don't mind that. You use the Poll Everywhere app, which is a highly engaging way to integrate technology and interpretation of graphic information into instruction. Everyone participated in the polls. Based on viewing the polling results, you asked learners to indicate which categories were most popular, and several students volunteered answers. Since not everyone responded, I wonder if every learner understands how to interpret graphic information. What are your thoughts about that? So what are the learners doing and saying? What does the teacher do and say? And is there a question to invite teacher reflection? So in red are what the learners do and say. In blue is what the teacher does and says. And in green is the question to support teacher reflection or to invite teacher reflection. So here the teacher is using Poll Everywhere, the app. The coach says this is effective. This is an effective way to integrate technology and the interpretation of graphic information. So giving some positive affirmation for the use of the technology and the tool that invites students to interpret graphic information. And then what the students are doing, everyone participated, right? And several students responded and volunteered answers, but also not everyone responded. So the question, I wonder if every learner understands how to interpret graphic information. What are your thoughts about that? So any comments about this feedback? Like I said, caveat, it's not necessarily perfect, and I'm sure you can probably think of ways to improve it. But the goal here is to illustrate the process or the framework for offering feedback. Comments welcome. Whoops. I didn't mean to go forward there. Not every student feels comfortable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, Carrie, thank you. Feedback puts the work on the teacher to decide. Isn't this advice? Okay, like I said, you can certainly offer comment. This is actually feedback that I gave to a teacher, but I'm open to comments. I'm not overly sensitive. So if you have thoughts about how to improve it, those thoughts are welcome. You can think of different ways. So I was thinking about, oops, things move so fast in the chat. Are we looking for every student to respond? That's a good question. Thank you for that. Yeah. It's difficult. Oh, I want to read that, but I can't. It's hard for me to get all the chat. Every time I try to go back, it keeps hopping around. So I wish I could read more of these comments. Yeah, different ways for the students to respond. That's a really good suggestion, Jean. Yes. How the level of the student compares to other class. Yes. Other ways to evaluate understanding. Yes, Brenda, thank you for that. Do students feel comfortable? Of course, always a question, right? Steve, I wonder, it's just a statement the coach has a question. Maybe the teacher might have an explanation. It's inviting further discussion rather than closing it down. Yeah, actually, I shared this feedback with the teacher and we ended up having a really good discussion around this. The teacher really didn't know if students understood how to read graphs. And the teacher made a decision to address that during his instruction. So it actually turned out to be okay. But, giving feedback is not easy, even when we have a structure like this that's very descriptive. It's not always, I think the hard part is always trying to come up with the right question that's not a leading question, that's not, a veiled question, giving advice or giving suggestions. So not easy for sure. Every coach's opinions, every learner doesn't understand, feels like a very strong coach opinion written as an open-ended question. Yeah, thanks for that. Okay. So I have another slide here with feedback. Let's see, there's another good comment here. The way students respond depends on the relationship among the students. This is true. Yes. Positive relationship with the teacher and the students. That's right. Absolutely true. All of this is about creating a safe space in the class, right? For learners to feel comfortable. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that very much. Okay, so here, this is kind of long, but I'll give you the opportunity to read it. And so, because we do have time for this. So let's see. I'm just trying to clear this so I can see it. So again, the structures, what are the learners doing and saying? What does the teacher do and say? And then based on this description of the class, what question could a coach pose to invite teacher reflection? So this was feedback from an ESOL class, probably low intermediate or so, intermediate level. I'll give you a chance to look over this. If you're not familiar with ESOL, this might not make a lot of sense because it's related to teaching word stress, syllable stress. There's a syllable stress worksheet. So I'll give you a moment to review this and then consider what question could a coach pose to invite teacher reflection. Yeah, thanks for that comment, Shirley. Modeling is so important, isn't it? Yeah. Make sure to demonstrate, Margaret, along the same lines, demonstrating or modeling what we want the learners to do. Yeah. Good. TPR, yes. Total physical response, where teachers act out what they want learners to do, so it's very clear. Walking the aisles continuously, see where the students or group is, and not waiting for students to ask. Good, Elizabeth, thank you for that. Ask the teacher, would the system work? I'm not sure. Yeah. TPR is total physical response, Lori. So the teacher gives a prompt and asks the students to respond. So the teacher might say, stand up, and the students stand up. Shake hands with your neighbor, and the students shake hands with their neighbor. So it's basically a listening activity that can be done with all kinds of things. Sue, thank you. In the spirit of curiosity, maybe ask the teacher what he observed and thinks about students' response. Yes, good. Yeah, I think that's right. Breakdown assessment through the time. Oh, I missed it. Everything's coming in too fast for me to read it all. Yeah. Give more time, give more examples. Yeah. Especially modeling. I think that's the biggest thing that we would like the teacher to be able to do here. I think also leveraging the small groups to support each other, which some of you have mentioned earlier about being able to do that so that those who are confused have some support from the small group they're working with. Give more examples. Yes, yes. Yes, TPR, total physical response. Thanks, Shirley. Ask the teacher to talk through their thoughts. Use instructional comprehension questions before this. Are you working alone or with partners? Oh, very good. I love that, Paul. Thank you. How are you going to find the stress syllable? Excellent. Yeah. So in this case, just to give you a little bit of context, this lesson was from the Teaching Skills Matter Toolkit, and the teacher was an excellent teacher, but was not often focused on teaching pronunciation. So this component of the lesson, he struggled with because he wasn't as familiar with teaching pronunciation. So that was part of what was going on here. And so as a coach, I wanted to know about his background in teaching pronunciation. And we ended up getting to talk about that. And it was helpful to him, I think. Not that I was able to convey everything there is to know about teaching pronunciation in that conversation, but it helped him think about the fact that teaching pronunciation in an ESOL class is very important. And so it piqued his interest in wanting to learn more. And I think that ended up being a useful conversation with that teacher. So this sort of summarizes what we've been talking about. Effective instructional coaching honors the teacher's autonomy. It is a non-judgmental dialogue between equal with a question mark partners. I put the equal with question mark in here because I'm guessing that there are some people, many people maybe on our webinar today who serve in as supervisors. So if we are serving as supervisors, working with teachers, I strongly believe that supervisors can also serve as coaches, but that unequal relationship does affect our partnership with the teachers. But we can strive to make our work more judgmental and reflective of the partnership principles that we've shared here today, and structuring our feedback around the process, the framework that I've shared with you also. So even in a supervisory, I strongly believe that. And then number 3, ensures that the teacher does the thinking. So here's another small example of an instructional leader coach giving some feedback to a teacher. I really like this quick example here. Here's what the research says. So the teacher asked the coach for, well, what is they had a conversation about, some aspect of teaching. The teacher requesting the coach to give some ideas what the research has to say about a specific aspect of teaching. So the coach was able to track down what the research says, and the coach says to the teacher, here's what the research says. However, do we need to adapt this at all so it will work for you and your students? What do you think about this approach? So I really like how that feedback is, or how that information is framed for the teacher, recognizing that it often needs to be adapted. It often needs to be thought through. Just because the research says this is what we should do, doesn't always mean that let me put it this way, it always means that we need to adapt it to fit the learners that we're working with in our own classroom. And then inviting the teacher, will this work? What do you think? So we're really dialoguing at a deep level with the teacher and inviting the teacher, inviting the teacher's voice. So here are some sentence frames for actionable feedback from observing teaching. So as we shared regarding the framework, what are the learners doing? What are the teachers doing? Focus on what learners do and say, rather than on our personal views as coaches. So here are 4 sentence frames that might be useful. I noticed the learners were blah, blah, which was effective because blah, blah. Number 2, students were able to demonstrate blah, blah, due to the way you blah, blah. Number 3, I observed that learners blah, blah, when you blah, blah. So very descriptive. I thought it was, insert a positive added adjective here. I thought it was excellent how you blah, blah, because this supported students in blah, blah. So sentence frames that you invite you to make your own. I think they're useful. And then we've already talked about how the word should could be problematic. Yeah. And also why questions, but I think why questions can be useful. It says here to avoid why questions instead of what and how. But I think depending on how the wording of our why questions, I mean, why did you do that? That's not a good question, but asking why questions could be a way to support teachers to reflect. So I wouldn't say every why question is not good, but what and how tend to be more effective, and they're easier to frame instead of using why did you do that? All right. So there's some more resources here. This is from the Center for Education Policy at Harvard. More resources for offering feedback. Lots of videos also on this website. It's all K-12, of course, but it still can be useful. And here's a framework for coaching conversations, just getting started. The steps, this comes from Killian's outcomes focused coaching map, which starts with a greeting, how are you doing today? Let's take how amount of time so that you're setting up the amount of time that you're going to spend together, determining a focus and a goal, and then some prompts or questions. What would be the most useful way to spend our time together today? I like that question a lot. Examine the current situation, the explore part. Tell me how your lesson planning's going. What's been working? What evidence can you share? What questions have you been thinking about? I like that one. Together, determine some ideas for moving forward. So maybe brainstorming together some ideas. Determine and then identifying what seems most feasible, planning, sequencing the steps. Let's map out what steps you can take, what makes sense to do first, what resources or supports might be needed. And then wrapping up, reviewing next steps. What will your next step be? What do you expect to accomplish? And also the coach relaying what he or she plans to do. Check in during our next meeting. So it's a nice little framework, and I like the prompts and the invitations. We talk a lot about the questions in our training for TSTM and DRAW. We talk a lot about the questions we use for prompting teachers to think. So these were our goals today. I hope you feel like we accomplished those goals. And there's some references. Definitely recommend the work of Jim Knight. He has a great website and lots of free materials on that website. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to respond to the questions. And these, everything will be sent out. There's actually a handout. I don't know if Bethel shared that handout. It also has the QR code, and she'll be sending out the slides as well. Start with phonics. Thank you for that. That's been my passion lately. Yeah. Thanks so much, Sarah. Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Mary. So glad that you could all be here today. Come and join me on links, by the way. Maybe we could go back to the QR code. I'm not sure which QR code you wanted, because I think there are two here. And Bethel is going to share, oh, this one maybe. Is this the one you wanted, I hope? Thank you, Jean. Thanks, Amanda. Yes, the link to this recording will be coming out, as well as the link to the slides and the handout that accompanies this. Great. Good luck with your coaching. Good luck with training coaches. Yeah. Let me know if there's anything I can do. Come and join links. If you're not already on links, come and join me there. Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Barbara. Thanks, Josephine. And Bethel, thank you for being there behind the scenes. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, Linda Ginsburg, my friend. Hello. Good to see you here. Yeah. I didn't get a chance to really see who all was here. I don't know if we get to see the names. I guess we don't. So, yeah. Thank you, Dorothy. Appreciate it. Marisha, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thanks, Carrie. I hope to see you soon, Carrie. Thanks, Scarlett.